Yes, first we'll see the two master summary charts which are there for your written filing chapter, which will basically complete your 60 to 70 percentage of the entire concept. Rather, the only thing which will be majorly left out is your QRMP scheme in this summary chart. Otherwise, everything about various types of returns, their due date will be covered here itself. Now, what is given here is, if you see the headings, you'll find that first is which is the return that is required to be filed. Then you're talking about who's the registered taxpayer who has to file it. Please understand that only if you're registered you can file the return. If you're not registered, there's no question of any return filing. Then you have due date of return. Then you have due date of payment. Please understand that practically first payment will happen, then return filing will happen. But as there is no specific due date of payment, it is generally the same as due date of your return it is given. So if at all I were to tell practically, first there will be payment, only then there will be return filing. Without your return payment, there won't be any return filing. Now, first we are focusing on your first category of taxable persons, who are regular taxable person and your casual taxable person. Regular taxable person and your casual taxable person. They will file something called as GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Now, a new information is coming up. If at all you are under QRMP scheme, you may file invoice furnishing facility, IFF. Invoice furnishing facility. Invoice furnishing facility, IFF. If you are under QRMP scheme. Normally it is GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. But if you are under quarterly return monthly payment, there would be invoice furnishing facility for the first 2 months of the quarter, and the last month will be GSTR 1. Right. Now, understand that what will be the due dates. First, let us understand for MRMP scheme. So, first let us talk about your MRMP scheme. Monthly return, monthly payment. As regard your MRMP scheme, you will be filing only and only your GSTR 1. There will be no IFF. Only and only your GSTR 1, the due date of which is 11th of your subsequent month. After the month is over, 11th. After the month is over, 11th. And when you are filing GSTR 1, a number of times it is said that there won't be any payment, isn't it? Only and only when you are filing your GSTR 3B, which is after the month is over 20 days. After the month is over 20 days, before you file your GSTR 3B, the same due date, you should have made the payment. First you will make the payment, then you will file your return on or before 20th of the next month. First you will make the payment, then you will file your GSTR 3B on or before 20th of next month. So, a regular taxable person or a casual taxable person who is under MRMP scheme will first file, after the month is over, will first file GSTR 1 on 11th of the next month. Then will make the payment and file GSTR 3B on or before 20th of the next month. But if I tell that you are under QRMP scheme. The moment I tell that you are under QRMP scheme, the answer is separate. Then you have something called as IFF. It is quarterly return monthly payment. Now let us first talk about your outward supplies. What will be there in GSTR 1 or IFF? It's only outward supplies. So what would be the answer for your outward supplies? First month there will be IFF. Second month there will be IFF. Only the last month there will be GSTR 1. First month IFF, the due date is 13th after the end of the month, which is optional. Second month, same, 13th after the end of the month, which is optional. Last month GSTR1, 13th after the end of the quarter, end of the last month or the entire quarter. Entire quarter. For the first 2 months, it will be invoice furnishing facility. Now it is not 11 days, it is 13 days. It is 13 days. And for the last month, it will be GSTR1, which you have to file, no option, which you have to file after the end of that particular month or the entire quarter, 13 days. 13 days time you will have. Obviously, the moment you are talking about your IFF or your GSTR1, please understand that there won't be any payment. Along with GSTR1 or IFF, there is no payment. Now, let us talk about your main return. What is your main return? GSTR 3B and your payment. Along with 3B, there is a payment. The main return is 3B, along with which there will be payment. Now read the name carefully again. It is quarterly return, monthly payment. So first we will see payment. If you see the payment for the first month of the quarter, payment is on 25th after the end of the month. It's not 20th, 25th after the end of the month. Second month of the quarter, payment is after 25th after the end of the month. And when you are talking about the last month of the quarter, payment is on 22nd for the southern part of India, 24th for the northern part of India after the end of the quarter. 22nd or 24th. 22nd or 24th. And along with the last payment, there would be your GSTR 3B, the due date of which is the same. Because return will be only one. After the end of the quarter, return will be only one. 22nd or 24th after the end of the quarter. After the end of the quarter. To make it more simple, let us take a very basic example. Very basic example. If I tell, just to make sure that the portal is functioning properly, or might be just to understand that southern part of India are more compliant than the northern part of India. Right? There will be some logic that they have taught. There is no separate due date for the normal taxpayers. They have kept it separately on some rationale for sure. Right? If you are under MRMP scheme, there is no differentiation between southern part and northern part of India. If you are under QRMP scheme, they have just split that into two. The understanding was lot of taxpayers are small taxpayers and lot of them will opt for QRMP scheme. It never happened. But that was the initial understanding that many people will be relieved by your QRMP scheme. But the matter of fact is no one is getting a big relief by QRMP scheme. We'll understand the moment we discuss exactly what is happening in QRMP scheme. There is no big relief. There is more complexity rather than simplicity. So they might have thought that lot of taxpayers will be filing their returns under QRMP. So when the GSTR 3B is filed, okay, I'll make it very simple. When you file your last date GSTR 3B, if at all ever you try on the last date, there'll be some technical glitch. You'll not be able to file it. Isn't it? There'll be some other problem. What if I give separate due dates for two parts of India? What if I give separate due dates for two parts of India? Don't you think that volume test, we call it as volume test of the website, that volume test will reduce? Correct. That would be the logic. But it is not so useful today because not many are opting for QRMP scheme. There would have been a thought process behind it. My understanding is volume test. If any return that you file, if at all you are going and filing your return on the last date, you will surely experience the difference on the portal if you would have filed 2 days earlier on the last date. The moment I tell that there are two separate due dates, that problem is solved. So that was the understanding. Now coming back here, making all your due dates simple, because if you see that particular chart, you actually are not clearly getting what is the due date for who. What is the due date for who? Now let me make things pretty simple. I am talking about a regular taxable person or a casual taxable person who is not opting for QRMP scheme. Who is not opting for which means he is under MRLP scheme. For him, April month, no IFF, no IFF, no IFF. April month, what is the due date? April month GSTR 1, what is the due date? 11th of May. Payment and GSTR 3B, 20th of May. May month, no IFF for them. GSTR 1, 11th of June. Payment and GSTR 3B, it will be 20th of June. June month, there is no IFF. 11th July. 11th July. And when you are talking about payment and GSTR 3B, it is 20th July. For them things are very simple. For them things are very, very simple. For those who are going for MR and B scheme, things are a bit different for those who are going for QRMP scheme. Supposing you are under QRMP scheme from July to September. July to September. Now, July month, what will happen? That will be IFF. That will be IFF. When? 13th of August. There will not be any GSTR. Payment. 25th of August. There won't be any GSTR 3B. August month. IFF. 13th of September. There won't be any GSTR. Payment. 25th of September. There won't be any GSTR 3B. September month. No IFF. Whatever is not reported will be reported in GSTR 1, the due date of which would be 13th of October. See, IFF after all is optional. IFF is after all optional. We will be discussing the difference between IFF and GSTR 1 when we discuss in detail. But understand that whatever is not reported will come here. Right? So when we are discussing IFF and GSTR 1, you will understand the statement. If I have not at all filed IFF, don't worry. All the say transaction I can report in my GSTR 1. Now, payment for the September month last. It is 22nd or 24th of October. That will be along with your GSTR 3B. Along with your GSTR 3B. Right? This is how you have to understand the different returns and payment and even the GSTR 1 IFF or payment and 3B. If you see this particular example, it is given in a pakka sequence. First it is all about IFF, then 1, then payment, then you are talking about GSTR 3B. Right? So that is basics of your, we are not talking about depth, we are just trying to understand basics of each type of your return. There is a note given below which is all about IFF. We will discuss. When we are talking about the points in depth, we will discuss all these areas. Now, coming back to your other areas. Please understand that there is something called as GSTR 2A or 2B. GSTR 2A or GSTR 2B, which will be there for the regular taxable person, for them to take input tax credit. This would be auto generated. They will not be filing anything, isn't it? They will get it. They will not file it. They will get it, based on which they will be taking the credit. What is 2A, what is 2B, we will discuss. First, let us understand the basics. Are we clear with this understanding about your regular taxable person and casual taxable person? Then next, we are talking about the next category of person, who is a composition taxable person. This composition taxable person will have quarterly payment. Will have quarterly. So you will not find anything in your return filing. CMP 08 there will be quarterly payment. And this quarterly payment is when? 18th after the end of the quarter. Which means for April to June, it is 18th July. July to September, 18th October. October to December, 18th January. January to March, 18th April. 18th April. Payment. Payment is quarterly. Payment is quarterly. So as we are talking only and only about payment, there's nothing about your return filing here. And there would be yearly filing of return, which is GSTR 4, which is 30th April after the end of the year. So when you are filing the return, there won't be any payment. You are making payment separately and you are filing return separately, not interconnected. It's all separately being there. So payment is quarterly, CMP 08, 18th after the end of the quarter, and return filing GSTR 4 is yearly. After the end of the financial year, it is 30th of April. If I am talking about a particular financial year, let us assume that I am talking about your April 2022 to March 2023. What would be your answer? First, when you are talking about your CMP 08, it would be April to June, July to September, October to December, Jan to March. The due date of it should be 18th July, 18th October, 18th Jan and 18th April. This is all about your CMP 08, which is quarterly payment. But when it is all about your GSTR 4 yearly return, it would be for the entire financial year, 30th April of the next financial year, 30th April. You have 30 days time after the financial year is over. Which means, to be very specific, 30th April of 2023. Because the example we have taken is April 22 to March 23. To be very specific, it is 18th July 2022, 18th October 2022, 18th Jan 2023, 18th April 2023. That is when you are talking about your composition taxable person. Now, understand that just like regular taxable person and casual taxable person getting the details of the inward supplies, they are getting the details of the inward supplies in GSTR 2A, GSTR 2B. Composition taxable person will also get the details of their inward supplies in GSTR 4A. GSTR 4A, which is again auto generated. They are not going to file it. There's no filing by them. They are not going to file it. It is auto generated. And also understand that 4A is not at all relevant because composition taxable person anyways does not get any input tax credit. 4A is not at all relevant because composition taxable person will not get any input tax credit. So not so important. Though it is there, it's not so important. Now, we are talking about the next type of return, which is NRTP, which is your NRTP return, non-resident taxable person. They will file their GSTR file. Understand that from now on, your due date of return filing and due date of payment is the same. Now, there are two places where your due date of return filing and due date of payment is not the same. One, QRMP scheme. One, composition taxable person. One, QRMP scheme. QRMP scheme. Right, payment is monthly but return filing is quarterly. So that is one area. And second, your composition taxable person, where payment is quarterly but filing is yearly. So the due date of payment and due date of return filing you find a different date. Now onwards, when we are going to see, you will find that whatever is your due date of return filing is your due date of payment. I am not going to highlight it separately. Whatever is your due date of return filing is your due date of payment. For NRTP, You have to file GSTR 5, which is 13th after the end of the month. 13th, 13th after the end of the month, or 7 days from the last date of registration, whichever is earlier, because they'll have temporary registration, right? So 13th after the end of the month, or 7 days from the last date of registration, whichever is earlier. The same is the due date of their payment. Same. Whether it is payment or filing, the due date is 13th after the end of the month, or 7 days from the last date of registration, whichever is earlier. Now, just to tell you a brief idea of how it works. I am not taking all the examples because we are talking about the concept part. I am touching the areas of those examples only which are related to your conceptual part. Other examples we'll discuss later. Now this is related to your conceptual part. Normally we have a habit of connecting your CTP and NRTP, because common point in CTP and NRTP is temporary registration. But please understand the fact that CTP will file GSTR 1 and 3B, whereas NRTP will file GSTR 5. For April month, what would be the answer for your casual taxable person? Your CTP. Your CTP will file GSTR 1 on or before 11th of May. Don't worry, there is an assumption written below that they are not going under QRMP scheme. If you see the note, there is an assumption. If they are under QRMP scheme, we know what would be the due date. And they will make the payment plus file their GSTR 3B on or before 20th of May. What about NRTP? Payment as well as GSTR 5 is on 13th of May. Wait. Look at the question carefully again. Registration is given on 1st April and its last date is 5th June. So, 13th of May or 7 days from the last date of registration, which would be 12th of June, which is earlier? 13th of May. May month. What will be the answer for casual taxable person? GSTR 1. 11th June. Payment and GSTR 3B. 20th June. What would be the answer for your NRTP? Payment plus GSTR 5. It is 13th of June or 7 days from the last date of registration. Last date of registration is 5th of June, which is 7 days if you add 12th of June. Which is earlier? 12th of June. Now we are talking about June month, because June month there are 5 days where they are doing transaction. GSTR 1 for CTP. 11th of July. Payment and GSTR 3B. It would be 20th of July. Whereas here for NRTP they will have payment and GSTR 5. It would be 13th of July or 7 days from the last date of registration, which is 12th June, which is earlier. Now surprisingly you will find that for 2 months the due date is the same. It may not be same always, but given the data, in this case for 2 months the due date is the same. For the entire May month, for first 5 days of June month, the due date is for both the months. You have to file 2 returns, by the way. You have to file 2 GSTR 5. One will be for May month, one will be for first 5 days of June month. The due date is the same. It may not be same always. I have given the question in such a way that it comes before your 13th, the due date of the second month in between comes before your 13th of the next month. The question is given in such a way. Are you clear this understanding? But when you talk about CTP, NRTP, sorry, when you talk about CTP specifically, NRTP is different. CTP, you will find that everything is same. Just like a regular taxable person, everything works out in a very same manner, very same fashion. Right. Additional information, final return, when you talk about your final return after cancellation has to be filed by CTP, but it is not required to be filed by NRTP. Once you cancel your registration, you have to file something called as final return. That will be filed only and only by CTP, not by NRTP. Whereas annual return, whether it is CTP or NRTP, no one is required to file it. Annual return, whether it is CTP or NRTP, no one is required to file the same. So that explains how NRTP works. More so over when you see NRTP alone, there will be always a doubt because NRTP is also temporary registration, CTP is also temporary registration, but things are different. Now coming back to your other returns that are there, you have something called as GSTR 5A, which is all about what? Which is all about a person who is supplying OIDRS services from outside India to non-taxable online recipient. They will file something called as GSTR 5A. A stands for automation. Wherever you have A, it stands for automation. GSTR 5A, and their due date of GSTR 5A as well as payment. I have clearly said. Now onwards, whatever is your due date of return filing is the due date of payment also same. It is 20th after the end of the month. April means 20th May, 20th June, 20th July, 20th August. But they will file only a very basic return, which is GSTR 5A. See, understand that all their transactions will be B2C because they are supplying to whom? Non-taxable online recipient. So single line item transaction will be reported. That's it. Clear? GSTR 5A. Next we have something called as your input service distributor, which will file GSTR 6. The due date of which is 13th after the end of the month. Reliance Limited having 15 registration for the common input services, it will have something called as ISD, input service distributor. It will take the credit, pass on the credit, take the credit, pass on the credit. When it is taking the credit, it is normal thing. Passing on the credit happens via GSTR 6. The due date of which is 13th after the end of the month. 13th after the April month, 13th May. May month, 13th June. June month, 13th July. Now can you please tell me what will be the due date of payment? No, they will not at all have payment. This I guess we have discussed for a very long time, that ISD will only take the credit, pass on the credit, take the credit, pass on the credit, take the credit, pass on the credit. There is no question of payment. So talking about due date of payment doesn't make sense now. Clear? ISD will only book the credit, pass on the credit, book the credit, pass on the credit. This we have discussed a few times. So ISD will never ever make the payment. They will just pass on the credit by filing the GSTR 6. Then you have something called as your TDS by government and TCS by electronic commerce operator. TDS GSTR 7, TCS, rather before going to TDS and TCS, for your input service distributor, their inward supplies will be auto generated in 6A. See, ISC will take the credit, pass on the credit. So whatever is their inward supplies or common input services, it will be auto generated in GSTR 6A. They will not file it. They will automatically get it. Wherever it was 2A, 2B or 4A or 6A, I have highlighted that in your dark red shade, just to tell that they are not to be filed by you, and everywhere I have written the statement that it is auto generated. You will get that. You are not going to file it, but you will get that. Auto generated. Now you are talking about your TDS deductor, government and TCS collector, electronic commerce operator. They will file their GSTR 7 and GSTR 8. GSTR 7 and GSTR 8. A very, very normal due date, which is 10th after the end of the month. And yes, they are going to make the payment. So the due date of payment is the same. They have to make the payment and file GSTR 7 or GSTR 8 on or before 10th of the next month. They have to make the payment and file GSTR 7 or GSTR 8 on or before 10th of the next month. See, why the due date for ISD and TDS TCS is given a bit earlier? Let us understand this way. I am Reliance Limited, one of the GST number. There is a head office of Reliance Limited which is registered as ISD, which will take the credit and pass on the credit to all the GST number, including one of the GST number being me. Now understand that I have to file my normal return. I have to file my normal return and payment on or before 20th of the next month. On or before 20th of the next month. Supposing you are talking about Reliance Limited, one of the GST number is myself, and my payment plus 3B for the month of, let us assume that we are talking entirely about the month of April, would be on 20th of May. I have got a head office of same Reliance Limited who will take the credit and pass on the credit. I have government contracts where government is deducting TDS. I am supplying through electronic commerce operator who is collecting TCS. Now understand that this ISD has to come to me. The credit of ISD. This TDS and TCS is also to come to me. ISD will take the credit and pass on the credit. ISD, whatever credit it is giving me, has to come to me on or before 20th of May. So they will file on or before 13th of May, so that I get the amount in my electronic credit ledger. When I tell Reliance Limited GST number 1 will get the amount in electronic credit ledger. And if the government or the electronic commerce operator, as the case may be, if they are paying their TDS or TCS on or before 10th of May, I'll get the same in my electronic cash ledger. When I tell Reliance number GST number will get, one of the GST number will get in electronic cash ledger. So when finally I am making the payment on or before 20th of May, I have this credit that I can use it. I have this cash ledger that I can use it. Isn't it? ISD, whatever credit it is giving to me, it will go and sit in my credit ledger. The opposite party, government or electronic commerce operator, whatever TDS or TCS they are paying, it will go and sit in my cash ledger. If they did do their work on or before my due date of payment, whenever I am making the payment on or before 20th of May, I get the credit in electronic credit ledger, I get the cash in my electronic cash ledger, so that I can use it. That is the logic of having the due dates of ISD, TDS and TCS a bit earlier. Now, you are having something called as your annual return. Please understand that 3 of them are required to file their annual return. 1, you are talking about your regular taxable person who will file GSTR 9, and due date for all of them is 31st of December of next financial year. 31st of December of next financial year. A composition taxable person will file GSTR 9A, due date 31st of December of next financial year. 9 months time you have. After the end of the financial year, 9 months time you have. An electronic commerce operator who is collecting TCS, in addition to monthly GSTR 8, it will file GSTR 9B, the due date of which is same, 31st of December of subsequent financial year. Now, in all these three cases, you will find that there is no due date of payment. I am not trying to tell that you will not make the payment. You may make the payment, you may not make the payment. If at all, when you are filing your annual return, normal feeling is mistakes will be corrected and payment will be made. Yes, you have to report the mistakes correctly, and you have to show the liability. But payment is not mandatory. Payment is not mandatory. You are getting that? You may have missed your 1 crore turnover in your normal returns. In annual return, you are showing that 1 crore turnover is there, more 1 crore turnover is there, on which tax is yet to be paid. And you are reporting in your GSTR 9 or 9C accordingly. There are multiple ways of reporting it. So when you are reporting that, you are not mandated to make the payment. If you make the payment, well and good. If you don't make the payment, no worries. If you make the payment now, your interest will be lesser. If you make the payment later, your interest will keep on increasing. Your interest will keep on increasing. Right. Now coming back here, I think we have discussed this. A regular taxable person may be required to file GSTR 9C. GSTR 9C. 9 is always there, but he may be required to file a reconciliation statement, GSTR 9C. Now what exactly your reconciliation statement will reconcile? It will reconcile the figures given in annual return and your figures in annual audited financial statement. To put in simple terms, reconciling the figures of annual return, GSTR 9, and reconciling the figures of annual audited books of accounts, financial statements, annual audited financial statements. Right, it will reconcile. Why there is a difference in your GST annual return, GSTR 9, and why that figure is not there in your annual audited financial statement. If there is no difference, don't worry. If there is a difference, explain the difference. Explain the difference. Understand that 9C is not required to be filed by everyone. It is required to be filed only if you are taxable, if your aggregate turnover crosses a particular limit, and now that limit is 5 crores. Then you have something called as your final return. Your final return to be filed by regular taxable person, casual taxable person, also OIDRS from outside India to non-taxable online recipient. Basically, it is only by regular taxable person and casual taxable person. Basically, it is only by RTP and CTP. The provision is drafted in such a way that you find that OIDRS who is supplying from outside India is also required to file it, but it really doesn't make sense for them to file that return because generally they don't have any credit. So submitting final return is not used. Final return is submitted for two things. What is your pending stock as on the date of cancellation, and if at all you have enjoyed the credit on that stock, you have to make the payment. You have to make that payment. So how you can read it is normally GSTR 10 is filed by two persons. Regular taxable person and casual taxable person. Regular taxable person and casual taxable person. Now understand that it is not like your normal other returns. There is no frequency. It will come only once. It will come only once. Once you cancel your GST number, you will have to file GSTR 10 within 3 months. Within 3 months of what? Within 3 months of the date of cancellation or the order of cancellation, whichever is later. Effective date of cancellation. Supposing today I get the order of cancellation. Today I get the order of cancellation but it is effective from, if it is effective from 1st of Jan. Supposing today is 1st of November, I get order of cancellation, but it is effective from 1st of Jan, retrospective, old date. I have time from where? 1st of January 2023 or 1st of November 2023, whichever is later. Only that makes sense. If you tell whichever is earlier, 3 months have already gone. I have got the cancellation order 1. I have got the cancellation order on 1st of November 2023, which tells that your cancellation is effective from 1st of January 2023. So it is always whichever is later. Whichever is later. Take that later date. Order of cancellation or effective date of cancellation, whichever is later, add 3 months. Add 3 months. And as I said, what is the purpose of final return? The purpose of final return is to show the pending stock that you have as on the date of cancellation. On that, if you have enjoyed input tax credit, you have to make the payment. Even otherwise, you have to make the payment. It is along with payment, same due date. It is along with payment, same due date. Same due date. You'll have the same due date. Then you have something called as GSTR 11. Person holding unique identification number, UIN, unique identification number, international bodies. They will file something called as GSTR 11. Understand that you international bodies having UIN will never ever make the payment. They will only get the refund. They will only get the refund. And GSTR 11 is so special that there is no due date. That there is no due date. You have to file it along with your refund application. Whenever you are applying for refund, you file it along with your refund application, or when it is required by proper officer. GSTR 11 is for person holding unique identification number. Will they ever make any payment? No. What they will do? They will always ask for refund. They will always ask for refund. When is GSTR 11 going to be filed? There is no due date for GSTR 11. Whenever these persons are claiming refund, they have to file GSTR 11, or at times it will be asked by the proper officer. So there is no due date. There is no due date. And finally, you have a very special type of return which is required to be filed by principal who is giving the goods to job worker, called as ITC 04. We call it as job worker return. But this return is to be filed by whom? Principal or job worker? No, it is to be filed by principal. It is to be filed by? Why? When principal is sending the goods to job worker and getting it back, there is no supply. Sending the goods to job work, no GST. Getting back the goods from job work, no GST. So government will keep track of the goods. Will keep track of the goods. How many goods you have sent to your job worker and how many of them have been returned back? How many of them are still lying with job worker? How many of them are still lying with job worker? It is an information return. It is an information return. The moment I tell it is an information return, there would be no payment. There would be no payment. What is the due date? What is the due date? It is 25th after the end of the half year or financial year, as the case may be. Few persons are required to file this ITC 04 on half yearly basis. On half yearly basis. If they are required to file on half yearly basis, April to September, it is 25th of October. October to March, it is 25th of April. If at all they are required to file on half yearly basis. If at all they are required to file on yearly basis, April to March, 25th April. April to March, 25th April of the next financial year. Now, big person will be required to file half yearly or big person will be required to file yearly? Big persons, more frequency, half yearly. Big persons, more frequency, half yearly. So they tell that if your aggregate turnover is more than 5 crores in preceding financial year, half yearly. Small persons, if your aggregate turnover is up to 5 crores in preceding financial year, it is yearly. Because you are small, You don't file half yearly every time, every now and then. You file yearly once. Yearly once. Are we guys clear with this entire understanding? These are all the different types of returns that you have in your GST. If you look at the payment aspect, now there are certain cases where you don't make the payment. Can you list them out? There are certain cases where you don't have payment. ITC 04, you don't have payment. GSTR 11, you don't have payment. GSTR 9, 9A, 9B, there is no mandatory payment that is required. GSTR 6, input service distributor, there is no payment. In these 4 cases, there is no payment, therefore there cannot be any due date of payment. I repeat, ITC 04, GSTR 11, your GSTR 9, 9A, 9B, your GSTR 6. Principal return filing about job worker, GSTR 11 is UIN return, GSTR 9, 9A, 9B is annual return or annual statement, and GSTR 6 is ISD return. There is no requirement of payment, therefore there is no due date of payment. Now other cases, wherever there is due date of payment, it is same as due date of return filing. There are 2 cases where the answer is different. One, QRMP scheme, other composition taxable person. Other is composition taxable person. There are few cases where there is no payment, no question of due date of payment. All the other cases, your due date of payment is same as due date of return filing. 2 exceptions. Regular taxable person and casual taxable person going for QRMP scheme or composition taxable person. Now, if you see various types of returns, there are certain aspects which institute may not have touched it, but a great scope for asking questions from this area. Certain aspects, if you see all these points, 5 points are there, basic questions, very basic points, very basic points. Right, base points we will be asking and we will be seeing whether it is there in these returns or not. Whether it is there in these returns or not. If you have made a mistake in a return, can you revise your return? No. Can you revise your return? No. Revision is not possible. Revision is not possible. You don't have a chance to revise your return. You don't have a chance to revise your return. What is possible is rectification of error. Rectification of error. Now, in any of the return, if you have made an error or omission, you can rectify it. But that rectification is not possible in case of your annual return or annual statement. That rectification is not possible in case of your GSTR 11 and ITC 04. And I am not talking about rectification of GSTR 10 because GSTR 10 is only one time. So question of rectification doesn't come. You are not going to file it again and again. So there cannot be any rectification. So if you want to understand it otherwise, yes, even in GSTR 10 there cannot be any rectification because you file it only once. So when it is your 9, 9A, 9B, 10, 11, ITC 04, no question of rectification. No question of rectification. Are we guys clear with this understanding? And there's a timeline for rectification that we'll discuss it later. But are we clear with the basic point? Are we guys clear with the basic point? So all the other returns, understand one thumb rule, if there is an error or omission, you cannot do revision of the return. You can do rectification in the month in which you have found that error or omission. Is that possible for all the returns? Yes. But not possible for few cases. What are they? 9, 9A, 9B, GSTR 10, GSTR 11 and ITC 04. Second, should you file your previous return before filing the next same return. Previous month return before filing the next month same return. Which means I will make it simple. Should I file my April month GSTR1 to file my May month GSTR1? Yes. Should I file my April month GSTR3B to file my May month GSTR3B? Yes. Filing of my previous GSTR return, previous month's GSTR return is generally required to file my next month same type of return. But this again is not applicable for IFF, invoice furnishing facility, because filing IFF is optional. Filing IFF is optional. It is also not applicable for GSTR 7, GSTR 8. We'll understand why, because if they have nil return, not required. It's not required for GSTR 7, 8, not required for 9, 9A, 9B. See, answer is basically the same. When you talk about your 9, 9A, 9B, 10, 11, ITC 04, rectification not possible, filing of previous period, same return is not required. Same return is not required. Put it in simple language. I can file annual return of current financial year without filing annual return of the previous financial year. Correct. I can file GSTR 7 or 8 of current month without filing GSTR 7 or 8 of previous month. So here, what is extra that you find is your IFF, because it is optional. GSTR 7 and 8, that's the logic of GSTR 7 and 8. Why? When we see the next point, if at all a particular month you don't have any TDS or TCS, you are not required to file nil return. Which means, supposing government is not having any TDS in the month of May, government may not file May month TDS return, then directly it will file June month TDS return. So when it is filing June month TDS return, there is a blank in between. April TDS return it has filed, May it was not filed, June it is filing. Is it allowed? Yes. So both are interconnected. As TDS returns and TCS returns, if at all they are nil returns, you are not required to file it. TDS returns and TCS return. Coming to the next question, if at all they are nil return, you are not required to file it. There may be transaction in April month, government would have filed TDS. May month, nothing, government would have ignored May month. June month, some transactions, now government is filing June month GSTR 7. Now government is not filing May month GSTR 7 because it is nil. Now government is filing June month's GSTR 7 without even filing the previous month, that is May month's GSTR 7. Both are interconnected. And even for IFF, nil return is not required because IFF is after all optional. If I have nothing to report, I may not file any invoice furnishing return. Now the next question is a bit different. If you don't have transaction, should you file nil return? If you don't have transaction, should you file nil return? Yes. Normal answer is yes. Even if you don't have transaction, you are required to file nil return. Now there are exceptions. Now exceptions are a bit different. One is IFF that we have seen because it is optional. One is GSTR 7 and GSTR 8. But wait. This time 9, 9A, 9B will not come. Even if you don't have transaction, you have to file nil GSTR 9, nil GSTR 9A, nil GSTR 9B. Even GSTR 10 will not come. Even if you don't have any stock and payment on the stock in relation to ITC or deemed supply, even then you have to file GSTR 10. So now the exceptions are different. It is IFF, GSTR 7, GSTR 8, GSTR 11 and ITC 04. Where if you don't have any transactions, no need to file it. So normally, even if I don't have transaction, I have to file my Nil return. What are the exceptions? IFF, GSTR 7, GSTR 8, GSTR 11, ITC 04. All other cases, even if I don't have transactions, I have to file nil return, and there comes a special point here. There are 3 cases where I can file my nil return via SMS. That is GSTR 1, GSTR 3B and CMP 08. This is a special point. All the other nil returns I have to file by going to the portal. But GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, CMP 08, I can file my nil GSTR 1, nil GSTR 3B, nil CMP 08 using SMS facility. Now if you look at these things, they are very, very different. What was the first point? If there is an error, can you revise your return? No. Rectification is possible. But rectification is not allowed in GSTR 9, 9A, 9B, 10, 11, ITC 04. Next concept was, if you have to file your previous month corresponding return to file the next month's corresponding same type of return. Previous period rather than calling it as month. Previous period return to file the next period same type of return. But exception. You are talking about your IFF, GSTR 7, GSTR 8, 9, 9A, IFF, GSTR 7, GSTR 8 together. 9, 9A, 9B together. 10, 11, ITC 04. Next concept that we have discussed. Even if you don't have transaction, you are required to file your nil return. Exception. IFF because it is optional. GSTR 7, GSTR 8, GSTR and 8, GSTR 11, ITC 04. Now your 9, 9A, 9B, 10 will not come. Why? Even if you don't have anything to report it, you have to file nil GSTR 9, nil GSTR 9A, nil GSTR 9B, nil GSTR 10. Right. Now, if you are filing your return late, you have to pay late fees. Now, late fees is not applicable in case of IFF. Very simple reason, because it is optional. And after all, IFF, after the due date, you cannot even file it. Forget about the fact. After the due date, you will see that IFF, you cannot even file it. Then, CMP 08. Because CMP 08 is about payment, not about return. And late payment will attract interest, not late fees. And you don't have it for your GSTR 11 and ITC 04. So late fees is not applicable for IFF because after the due date you cannot file it. CMP 08 because it is all about payment. If you are paying late, there will be interest, not late fees. GSTR 11 because normally they file it along with refund application, and ITC 04. Right. And the last question, in all the other cases, if you are filing late, there will be late fees. In all the other cases, if you are filing late, there will be late fees. In the last case, if you are not filing your return, you will get a notice under section 46. You will get a notice under section 46 that you have not filed your return, please file it. Now that notice is not there. That notice will not be given now, not only for your IFF. For the first time you are also seeing GSTR 1. Actually, government is not bothered whether you are filing your GSTR 1 or not. Government is more happy. If you don't file your GSTR 1, opposite party will not get the data in GSTR 2A to B. They will not be able to take the credit. So if you are not filing your IFF or GSTR 1, you will not get any notice. If you are not filing CMP 08, you will not get a notice because CMP 08 is not about return. Basically, it is a payment form. And if you are not filing GSTR 11 or ITC 04, even then you will not get notice. So when you are talking about these particular scenarios, even if you have not filed your GSTR, IFF or GSTR 1, or even if you have not filed your CMP 08, even if you have not filed your GSTR 11 or ITC 04, you will not get any notice. You will not get any notice. All the other returns, if you have not filed, you will get a notice. Now, why this master summary chart 2 is given? If I were to tell this concept for each of the return in different places, 5 concepts, each of the return each time, you will not even remember which concept for which return. But if I give all the 5 concepts, there are totally 5 concepts. One is rectification, one is previous month's return, one is nil return, one is late fees, one is notice. Together. And tell that this is a summary. This is the summary. Life become very simple. Okay, I need to focus only on these particular areas. Are we clear with this understanding? Are we guys clear with this understanding? So that is a very crucial point where ICI Institute has every right to test your MCQs or to give you basic questions. Asking what will happen, what will not happen. Basic points they will give. Right. Now, 2 small points related to that. One of the points in all these 5 concepts was rectification. One of the points in all these 5 concepts was rectification. Now, we are going to discuss 2 special concepts here in a very simple manner, very basic manner. If there is an error or omission, can you revise your return? If there is an error or omission, can you revise your return? So, the moment I tell if there is an error or omission, I cannot revise my return. All I can do is rectify. Revision not possible, rectification possible. If there is error in April month's return which I have found in December, I cannot revise my April return, but I can rectify that in December month. When I am filing my December month return, I can rectify that error or omission. Now, when you talk about rectification, there are 2 ifs and buts, which means basically rectification is generally allowed, but rectification will not be allowed in 2 cases. What are the 2 cases? 1, if that error or omission is found out by the proper officer, whether during audit or inspection or scrutiny, etc. It is found by the officer. It is found out by the officer. No need to see whether he has found during audit or inquiry or investigation or scrutiny. It is being found by the officer. You cannot rectify it. Second, you are talking about time limit. If it is after the time limit, there is a time limit to rectify it. There is a time limit to rectify it. What is the time limit to rectify it? The time limit to rectify it is 30th of November of next financial year. 30th of November of next financial year, or actual date of annual return of that current financial year, whichever is earlier. If it is after your time limit, you cannot rectify it. If you want to rectify it, it should be before your time limit. What is the time limit? 30th of November of next financial year, or actual date of annual return of that financial year. If I tell that I made a mistake in my April 2022 return, plus I also made a mistake in my July 2022 return, plus I also made a mistake in my March 2023 return. Error or omission, error or omission, error or omission. Please understand that all the 3 falls under the same financial year 2022-23. So the last date for all of the 3 error or omission is the same. What is that? And if I tell that my annual return for financial year 22-23, that is the current financial year, I have filed it on say 10th of October 2023. Then what is the last date? 30th of November of next financial year means 30th of November of 2023, or actual date of annual return of that financial year 10th of October of 2023, whichever is earlier. So answer would be in this case 10th October. But if I change this 10th October to 10th December, then this would be 30th of November of 2023. Rather than repeating the same example, if I change the date, this would be the answer. That is the last date to rectify my returns. That is the last date to rectify my returns. Now, can I revise my return? No. Can I rectify? Yes. Two cautions. No rectification if the error or omission is found by the proper officer during your audit or inquiry or investigation or scrutiny, etc., etc. Or if it is after the time limit. Now, what is the time limit? 30th of November of next financial year or actual date of filing of annual return of that particular financial year, whichever is earlier. So, before that I have to rectify my errors or omission. Now, there is a lengthy story given below. That is a special point. Normally, what is said, if I want to file GSTR 1 of May month, I should have filed GSTR 1 of April. If I want to file GSTR 3B of May month, I should have filed GSTR 3B of April. But now they are interconnecting my 1 and 3B. If you read this theoretically, it will take some time to digest and there are a lot of ifs and buts coming here. What if I tell that this can be understood maximum in 2 to 3 minutes? Very simple. Just take 3 months. You can take the timeline. You will find that things are pretty simple in these two provisions which are given. They are interconnecting now sequence of 1 and 3B. Right. So here you have April month's GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, May month's GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, and June month's GSTR 1, GSTR 3B. Now first, how they add to the complication. First they tell that you file April month's GSTR 1, only then May will open. You file May month's GSTR 1, only then June will open. Okay, fair enough. Then they talk about 3B. You file April month's GSTR 3B, only then May month's GSTR 3B will open. You file May month's GSTR 3B, only then June month's GSTR 3B will open. Fair enough. Okay. Then they tell, if at all you want to file GSTR 1 of May, GSTR 3B of April should have been filed. Because if I allow you to file GSTR 1 of May without you filing GSTR 3B of April, you have not made the payment of tax of April month, but you are filing GSTR 1 of May month so that the opposite party will get the credit. So they are forcing me to close my April month's GSTR 3B before I file May month's GSTR 1 so that I am closing my payments first, then I am filing my outward supplies of the next month so that the opposite party will get the credit. Which means I have to file May month's GSTR 3B so that I can file June month's GSTR 1. They don't stop here. Then they go ahead, they tell that okay, we have complicated it so much, why not complicate it? One more point. You file April month's GSTR 1 so that we will open your April month's GSTR 3B. May month's GSTR 1 so that we will open your May month's GSTR 3B. June month's GSTR 1 so that we will open your June month's GSTR 3B. After all, what are they trying to tell? One was, first when I said it was very simple. April GSTR 1, May GSTR 1, June GSTR 1. April GSTR 3B, June GSTR 3B, sorry, May GSTR 3B and then June GSTR 3B. Till that things are very, very clear. Then suddenly I said that April GSTR 3B, then May month GSTR 1. May GSTR 3B, then June GSTR 1. That added a bit to it. Then suddenly I said, no, wait. April GSTR 1 for April GSTR 3B. May GSTR 1 for May's GSTR 3B. June GSTR1 for June's GSTR3. What if I tell that all these arrow marks you can forget and remember only the last arrow mark? First April month GSTR1, then April month GSTR3B, then May month GSTR1, then May month GSTR3B, then June month GSTR1, June month GSTR3B. To make your life simple, if you read all the 4 provisions given at different places and you tell that okay, let us consolidate it. Make life very simple. First file April months 1, then April months 3B. Then go to next month. May months 1, then May months 3B. Then go to next month. June months GSTR 1, then go to June months GSTR 3B. So rather than remembering these 4 provisions 1, 2, 3 and 4, you can easily remember only this summary. You can, in very simple language, just remember the summary. Right. So that summary is more simple. Otherwise, if you read that sequence, it is not giving the clear, very clear picture. Are you clear with this understanding? Are you guys clear with this understanding? Right. It's all about interlinking of 1 and 3B sequence. Interlinking of 1 and 3B sequence. So that is given here. Because in all other cases, you have to file that month's, that period's particular return. Only then you can file the same return for the next period. But here, your GSTR 1 filing of a particular month is dependent on GSTR 3B of the previous month also. So that is interconnecting. That is interconnecting. So whatever is given here, we have discussed with the help of that simple chart. Summary is very simple. First file the starting month's GSTR 1, then only 3B will open. When you have filed both 1 and 3B of a particular month, then only GSTR 1 of the next month will open. Only when you have filed next month's GSTR 1, next month's GSTR 3B will open. Likewise. That will go on. That completes our major chapter where we are talking about many concepts given together for all the different types of returns.